Skyblock, the legendary Minecraft minigame where it's just you, a tree, some ice and lava, and the sky. A game where everything you build and do comes completely from these few things. Skyblock has influenced Minecraft minigames for years, even becoming one of the most popular games on the largest Minecraft network, Hypixel. But what if instead of starting with almost nothing, you had access to everything in just one block? Welcome to 100 Days in Modded 1-Block Skyblock. Before we begin, this is still a brand new channel, so if you would consider liking and subscribing, that would help me out a ton. Also, this video was partially inspired by Paul GG's 100 Days, so go ahead and give that a watch. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started. I started out on a small platform in the Flatland stage, with a couple of books to help guide me in some of the more complicated mods. I begin by breaking the 1 block, and it instantly summons my newest friend, Pig. This phase mostly consisted of different types of dirts and such. And after a short time, a dirt chest spawned, quickly giving me the dirt I needed to expand. I also planted a sapling I got from breaking some leaves, so I could quickly get some wood and tools. Shortly after, I had a sheep spawn, so I kinda just shoved it to the side. Then I had a second dirt chest spawn, and once again it gave me a nice stack of dirt. After a little while, I completed a quest for getting 2 stacks of dirt, which gave me a grass block so I could spread some of that sweet green goodness all over my island. Before placing it down so all the sheep wouldn't just eat it all, I created a new platform for the animals. After a little while, I decided to explore a bit more of this island that I spawned on, and underneath there were a couple bit of living roots that I collected, which could be used for things like making saplings and floral fertilizer, which was used for the mod Botania. With the living wood, I decided to craft a couple of oak saplings and threw them down. In the evening of day 1, after punching the 1 block for a while, I was given a chest that marked the beginning of the Farmland stage. The Farmland stage mostly contained different variants of food, like carrots and potatoes, and it also featured a new set of quests, which I accidentally completed one that gave me a couple sandy bricks, and I used them to help increase the quality of life for my animals. On day 2, my first tree grew, and I began construction of a farming plot, where I planted some of the carrots that I had gotten from the 1 block. My tree farm was starting to grow pretty well. On the evening of day 2, I decided to invest in some Tinker's Construct stations and tools. I made myself a Tinker's Construct axe, which was nice because it was completely repairable. On day 3, the fishing gods blessed me with a friend. A carp had managed to swam up one of my waterfalls, so I took him in and I very originally named him Fish. And shortly after, I decided to do a bit of mining on the 1 block, and I entered the next phase, the underground phase. The underground phase mostly contained various sorts of ores and stones, but the only issue with that was I had no way to get a stone pickaxe. I ended up having to go through with a wooden pickaxe and breaking a lot of the stronger ores and not getting any of the beautiful loot. On day 4, I attempted to try to make myself a flint pickaxe with the Tinker's Construct mod, so that I could mine things that would require an iron pickaxe. Achieving a stone pickaxe was pretty easy, but an iron pickaxe requires a lot more stone. Sadly, the flint pickaxe was even worse than a stone one, and I had to just keep moving on, looking for the stone to make a furnace. Then on the evening of day 4, while mining and looking for more stone, I was given diamonds. Normally this would be a blessing, but instead it was a curse because I didn't have an diamond pickaxe, and I had to waste it. Moving on to day 5, I finally got my 8th piece of stone, so that I could create a furnace and smelt my iron, and finally mine any diamonds that may appear. The mod pack did end up giving me a few spawn eggs, and I just wanted to mention it so no one would accuse me of cheating in the comments. I then decided to start expanding my farm, and I started by adding a new fenced-in area to keep all of my animals separated. And suddenly, while working on that, I looked over and I saw a dolphin randomly swimming in a stream of water from my farm. I quickly rushed over, put all my things in chests, and desperately tried to save its life, but despite my best efforts, there was nothing I could do, and the dolphin flopped its way right into the void. After that very traumatic experience, I then decided to erect a gravestone in honor of the dolphin, where I would eventually put my infinite water source. Then, on that evening, despite my dolphin's sacrifice, I was given my very first diamonds. Well, I guess my very second diamonds, but, you know. I started out day 6 by expanding my island and creating a storage area. Then later that evening, I upgraded all of my tools from wood to stone. On day 7, I placed all of my chests down, creating the very beginning of my storage area. And I created my bed, which I decided to just throw in the middle of nowhere and take a nice map to avoid all of those scary mobs. On day 8, I didn't end up doing too much. I started out by watching a skeleton burn to death, then I created my infinite water source, and I went right back to bed. Started out the next day by noticing that my friend Fish was getting a little bit depressed. I decided that he needed a bit of an upgrade for his habitat. Over by my storage area, I made him a little fish tank that wasn't too great, but was nicer than what he had. On day 10, I decided to just try to make my storage area look a little bit nicer. And then I went and started mining the 1 block when I had a tortoise spawn, and I kind of just didn't know what to do with him, so I threw him off to the side. Then later I realized that I could add redstone and diamonds to my axe to drastically increase its speed. On days 11 to 12, I finally finished working on my animal pen after the distraction with my dolphin. I went through, created a couple different pens, and separated all of my animals. Then later that evening, I worked on a little bit of a tech platform with water wheels and such, but I never actually used the platform more than once, so I figured I'd like mention it and then just leave it. On day 13, I used the spawn eggs to summon a couple cows, sheep, and chicken so that I could continue growing my farm. Then that evening, I chopped up some logs and a cutting board to get bark, and then I crafted the bark into paper, and I crafted the paper into a book, then I crafted the book into the Lexia Botania, which was a helpful book to help guide me through the Botania mod, which, funnily enough, taught me that I could have gotten stone from dirt this entire time, which means I just completely wasted a diamond and countless other pieces of, like, useful material, so that's incredible. Thanks, Minecraft. Then after that, I created the petal epicarthy, what now? I don't really know what it's called, but it's from the Botania mod. Then day 15, using the petal thingy, I created a pure daisy to help purify my stones and woods. Day 16, I did purify some of the wood, crafted myself a wand of the forest, which was almost completely useful, except for the fact that I could rotate my furnaces and chest, which was kind of neat. Started out strong on day 17, working vigorously on that 1 block, so I proceeded to get bored and went back over to my magic area, and I crafted a couple more Botania items. On night 18, I created a couple of Hydra nooses, which would create mana for all of my Botania crafting stations in the future. All you had to do is just pour some water on it, and it would start generating. On day 19, I did decide that it was a little bit inefficient. I created the Endo Flame, which instead of using water, would actually burn fuels such as wood or coal. I kept generating mana with both the Endo Flames and the Hydra nooses until I got enough mana to create a Mana Steel Ingot. The Mana Steel Ingot would be used to craft an item, which would eventually help me get a cobblestone generator that I very desperately wanted. At the end of day 19, I had all 4 Mana Steel Ingots that I needed. On days 20 to 21, I kept working on expanding my little chest area until I had a decent area to live in with furnaces and all that. And I also started work on a pavilion so that my island wouldn't look too ugly. Day 22, I spent all of my time expanding my tree farm so that I had the utmost efficiency with my wood. Then, I stumbled across a very legendary and very fabled item known as the vertical slab, which Minecraft, please add vertical slabs in the Minecraft. These look so nice. Next day, I kept adding some storage because knowing this mod pack, I would use as much storage as I could have. And then I spent the rest of the evening gathering more wood and materials. Day 25, I began creation of a platform for a long needed mob farm so I could, farm mobs. Yep. Then later, I discovered that the mod would let me carry chests by shift right clicking, which was super useful so that I could just mine the block, throw some items in, and then just carry the chest back over to my storage area. Then on day 26, I finally escaped the underground phase and entered the Overworld phase. The Overworld stage contained a lot of different items from the previous stages, along with new mobs and a few other surface items. I later had a couple horses and mules spawn, which I pushed back into my animal pen. And later, I had a parrot also spawn, and I tamed it, and then forgot to name it. Then in the evening, I crafted myself a stone pickaxe from the Tinker's Construct mod. Then I added diamond and haste to this pickaxe, so it would be a lot more efficient and a lot easier to replace than my iron pickaxe. Day 27, I split the work up from working on my mob grinder, and I spent the rest of my evening expanding my animal pen. Then from days 28 to 31, I buckled down and spent the entire time building the mob grinder. It took me quite a while, but in the end, I was very proud of it, and it was working very quickly. I spent the rest of day 31 killing the mobs in the grinder, but on day 32, disaster struck. While killing mobs in the grinder, a creeper somehow targeted me through the blocks and blew up my base of my farm, welcoming all sorts of zombie skeletons and any type of hostile creature to fully roam around my base. I quickly got myself a bow and started bowing them down until I got in a very close call with the Enderman. I spent the entirety of the next day going through and fixing the generator and hopefully making it altogether more efficient. Then on day 34, I realized I made it completely wrong, and I actually made it a couple blocks larger than I should have, which was causing a couple issues with collection. So I went through it again completely and remade the central structure and finished making the grinder as quickly as possible. Then for the rest of day 34 and day 35, I went back to working on the Botania mod. I crafted myself a mana diamond, which was used to make a pedestal that I never used again. Great job, me. Well done. After that, I continued to just keep punching the one block until that evening when I had a villager spawn. So I quickly went to sleep so that I could work on creating a home for my mandatory volunteers. Day 36, I used the technique of a job to move my villager over to my animal pen. I began construction of my trading hall. Then that evening, I had another villager spawn, so I would eventually be able to start breeding. The next day, while mining the one block, I had several more villagers spawn. Until that evening, the one block gave me a Vex, and I had a very, very close call with death. I spent most of day 38 just mining the one block, because with a grand total of 10 phases, I better start getting a move on if I want to actually finish the video. On day 39, I realized that I was having focusing issues because I immediately decided to work on an ocean habitat for what I hoped to be a couple of turtles. The next day, I finished the habitat and brought in some very, very happy turtles into a rough remake of their original habitat. Later that evening, outshining the two very adorable turtles, I did probably the coolest thing I've ever done in Minecraft, fighting off a Vindicator and a baby husk at the same time, despite almost being one shot by the Vindicator. After a cool little parkour maneuver, I realized that I would need a lot better armor. But after being almost brutally murdered, I didn't even realize that I got the achievement Voluntary Exile. While walking back towards my base, I had a raid spawn. I had a raid spawn in the sky. The 3 or 4 villagers that I had in my villager trading hall started a raid, actually. I started panicking. I made myself some armor. I made myself a bow. And I just looked and I looked for these guys until I found them just chilling up on my mob grinder. I bridged myself up into the sky and I proceeded to use the rest of day 40 and 41, blowing off the rest of the enemies and earning myself the achievement Hero of the Village. Day 42, I had another close encounter with the Vex, but this time, instead of killing it, I decided to throw down a boat and try to see if I could capture it. And I made myself a nice little trophy case, because I was very proud of my Vex in a boat. On days 43 to 44, I crafted myself a copper chest to help store all the new types of blocks that I was getting from the one block. But then, after a little while, I decided it was not even close to enough storage, so I upgraded it another 2 times, creating a mega golden chest. And that evening, I managed to capture another Vex, which I added to my growing collection. On day 45, a Vindicator spawned, but it was no match for the power of my bow and a little bit of running. Then after what seemed like ages, I finally got out of that stage, and I entered the Astral phase. The Astral phase contained different types of marble blocks from the mod Astral Sorcery, which I really didn't know how to use at all. I then took a little break from mine in the one block and crafted myself a building gadget, which allowed me to very quickly and very easily build large platforms. On day 46, I was given a chest which contained a linking wand, which I didn't really know how to use then, and as of recording this, I really don't know either. However, the next day, I quickly moved on to the Magicka phase. This phase contained different blocks and such from the Ars Novu mod. Now sadly, I'm missing the recording footage for days 48 through 51. These days, I mostly just started on an iron farm that didn't really work, and then expanded my Botania platform so I could keep all of my magic mod stuff in the same spot. From days 52 to 54, I tried to fix my iron farm, but at this point, most of my iron golems were actually spawning at the village next door, so eventually I just decided to leave and kill the iron golems by hand. Day 55, I was working on my villager trades, and I ended up getting the enchantment Protection 4. Then I spent the rest of the day punching the one block, where a couple peculiar looking mobs spawned, and then after that, I decided to make a spell book from the Ars Novu mod. The mod would let me make my own types of spells, so I created a spell that would instantly break any block I looked at, and after a bit of messing around, I created a spell that would shoot bullets of pure pain. Day 56, I realized how useful this mod could be, so I started to investigate and make other items that would be needed for furthering my collection of spells. Next, I created a new area near my farm because the crafting system was fueled off the power of plants. Then on day 57, while gathering the materials to help create some of my first spells, I noticed a zombie up by my iron farm. I decided to go and just kill it, but doing so was a complete mistake because I was thrown off the edge of my farm and into the void below. During that, I realized that the mod Forgiving Void was added, which would just teleport you back up into the sky. But I didn't really realize that, and I can't really hit a water bucket clutch for the life of me, so this caused my first death. I was devastated, but I was not going to give up so easily. I put my obituary back into my chest and continued on with my life. After mining the one block with my new magic spell, I found my way into the next stage, the Magic Bundle stage. The Magic Bundle stage was just a collection of the last 2 stages, where I could get marble from the Astral mod, and other blocks from Ars Novu. Then later that evening, I crafted an enchanting apparatus, and I used it to create a new spell, the Spell of Speed. If the name didn't imply, the spell gave me the speed status effect, which was super useful for navigating my island. On the morning of day 58, I created another spell, Amplify. This spell would make any spell I used even more powerful. I used this spell to make my speed spell even more powerful, so I could go from speed 1 to speed 2. On day 59, I went through and I just mined the one block for most of the evening. Day 60, I decided to go and create a new room for breeding my unpaid interns. Then later, while working on my farm, I made the fatal mistake of being dead. A creeper ended up targeting me through my mob grinder and blew me up, so I had to add another obituary to the tally, and I collected my things. Day 61, I went ahead and repaired my mob grinder and spent the rest of the day chopping down some trees. On day 62, I killed a couple iron golems and spent most of the day in my trading hall trading for better gear and slowly working up to get diamond armor from the blacksmith. Day 63, I yet again spent the entire day mining on the one block. On day 64, I took my 3rd death because a flying helicopter seed bug decided that it wanted to jump in front of my sword and save a creeper's life. Thanks, Minecraft. Then later that day, while killing an iron golem, I somehow messed up and took yet another death. Day 65, I managed to capture a zombie and then give it a name tag for my iron farm. But of course, instead of my iron farm generating iron, I went back over to my trading hall and started murdering iron golems by hand. Day 66, I attempted to just try to spawn proof everything to force the iron golems to spawn at my farm, but that turned out to be way too much effort and I just gave up. Then later that day, I decided to keep working on mining the 1 block, and I finally got out of the magic phase, and I moved into the abyss phase, which was literally a collection of ocean-related blocks, and that was it. There was nothing too interesting in the phase, so I just went through and spent all of days 67 and 68 just mining the block, hoping to get something decent. Then in the evening of 68, I entered a bee-related phase, the bumble zone. Then on day 69, nice, I took yet another death because iron golems are way too smart for their own good, but I made sure to get my sweet, sweet revenge. Started out day 70 by making a long overdue miniature super smelter to help cook all of my food, and then I spent the rest of the day using my trading hall to trade sticks for emeralds, and emeralds for some long needed diamond armor. Day 71, I ended up calling a friend and had them try to teach me how to use the Astral sorcery mod, and we crafted a few different things, but I never really got too far. On day 72, I was starting to realize a serious lack of gold on my island, because after getting through the underground phase, I was not able to find any sort of ore, especially gold. After looking through trying to find a way to find gold, however, I discovered the orchid, which was a magical flower that could convert nearby stone blocks into ores at the cost of mana. I instantly crafted one, and I have to say it definitely did the job, but it was rather slow. After looking at it, there was a very low chance that the flower would change stone into gold, but not having any other options, I continued to make stone and convert it into ores. Day 73, I spent all my time making stone and collecting wood to create more mana, and then making more ores. Then that evening, I made a looking glass, which was supposed to help me see the stars, but was bugged anyway. Day 74 and day 75, it was like an 1849 San Francisco gold rush with a need for gold. But on the eve of day 75, I finally got the 6 gold I needed to create a crystallizer, giving me the gems I needed to create as many spells as I would ever want. On day 76, I crafted a new type of plant from the enchanting apparatus, which will allow me to make special magic robes, greatly increasing my magical abilities. After planting the seed, I spent my time punching the 1 block till I got enough materials to craft a beehive. I made a new island and prepared to enter the new dimension, the bumble zone. The bumble zone was only accessible by throwing an ender pearl at a beehive, and unsurprisingly, the new dimension was literally a giant beehive. I ended up spawning in a little cavern surrounded by honey, but with the help of my minimap, I slowly made my way towards the larger area. However, after a bit of exploration, I realized that there wasn't much in the dimension, and I noticed I had a timer that was slowly ticking away in the bottom corner. The only way to exit the dimension was to mine into the void, so once I reached a few minutes on the time, I quickly tried to escape, but of course with my luck, I was officially stranded on my island, almost 2,000 meters away from all my stuff. I immediately gathered a few items and my last 2 ender pearls so that I could try to retrace my steps and retrieve my items. But sadly, the timer only had 2 minutes instead of my previous 10. I sprinted as quickly as I could, trying to find the exact spot that I exited, but I didn't have enough time, and I was slowly given poison, hunger, weakness, and the very dreaded mining fatigue. Eventually, I managed to find where I exited, and I was free at last. At this point, I was completely out of ender pearls, and not willing to risk another trip so soon. I gathered as many blocks as I could, and gathered some mage bloom so I could craft my magical robes. I spent the rest of the day and night gathering wood, and I made myself an extra magic book to make my mining even quicker. But on the evening of day 77 and the morning of day 78, I had a few endermen spawn. But I only managed to get 1 ender pearl, giving me a one-way trip to the bumble zone. I began to start building the path to my items, but I quickly realized how long it would take for me to build all the way there. So as a last resort, I chested all my things, and with nothing to lose, I entered for what I hoped to be the final time. This time, I had more than enough time to find my hole, and without taking any risks, I built my way down. Finally, I was reunited with my items and all of my spells. But I quickly realized that the fatal flaw in my plan was I'd have to re-enter the bumble zone to get back. With only 2 minutes remaining on my timer, I sprinted back to my spawn, where I quickly realized the biggest flaw in my plan was I would have to mine my way back down onto my island. I managed to get back to where my spawn was with about a minute to spare, but by then it was too late. The effects of the timer began to sink in, and I was slowly getting poisoned and weakened. Was this going to be my fate? Stuck in the dimension of honey forever? However, after a few moments of panic, I realized that I could use my beloved magic book to use the mining spell to quickly get back to my island. Finally, I was back where I belonged, with only a few deaths to show for it. Firmly, I vowed I would never again enter the horrid B dimension. Back to normal on day 79, I began to look into ways of flight, so that if I ever got stuck in the void, I'd be able to regather my items again. I began looking into crafting a belt known as the Belt of Levitation, which of course would allow whoever wore it to levitate. Then I ended up using the Glyph of Launch I was going to use on my Belt of Levitation, so I could learn the spell Launch. All it did was basically send me a few blocks in the air, but it was pretty useful for navigating my island. Then while waiting for my source jar to gather more fuel, I extended my farms. Day 81, I realized I would need even more gold to help create my belt, and that evening, I crafted the Glyph of Leap, which was 100 times better than the spell Launch in every possible way. This spell, instead of launching me straight up, sent me in the direction I was looking, basically gave me the power of flight. And it was kind of fun to mess with. On day 82, I took a little bit of a break from gathering gold, and instead spent the time trying to escape the bee phase. On day 31, I went back to looking for gold, until a creeper ended up blowing up my beehives, and I guess that was for the best anyway. Then, after what felt like ages of mining, I finally escaped the horrid bee phase and entered the Nether stage. Along with giving me lava for a cobblestone generator and obsidian to make a portal, the Nether now contained my much needed gold. It also contained these fox sounds, which, although being rather cute, were hostile, so I needed to, you know. At this point, I was a good 85 days into the world, and I had only 15 days to collect all of my blaze rods, and then finish both the Nether and the end phases. Thankfully, I had a few blazes spawn, although my island did almost burn down a couple of times. Then after a bit more mining, I finally had all 4 pieces of gold I needed, so I finally crafted my Belt of Levitation. And to be honest, it was kind of overpowered. The belt would keep me a couple blocks above the ground at all times, as long as I was crouching. Even when not above the ground, I would have slow falling, which combined with the spell of leaping meant I could literally go anywhere I wanted. Then on day 86, I managed to get 10 obsidian, so I made a portal and went right into the Nether. The Nether was mostly normal, but with a couple of extra added ores and of course, the timer that had followed me into the Nether. I would have 10 minutes to go find a fortress, get as many blaze rods as possible, and get out before I got killed. I didn't manage to get nearly enough blaze rods to take me to the end, but I did get the lava I needed to craft a long overdue cobblestone generator. I also upgraded my spellbook, giving it the ability to use new spells and have even more mana. For the rest of 86 and day 87, I quickly got to work building my cobblestone generator, but pretty soon I realized that a normal generator wouldn't be enough for me, so I spent most of the day 87 automating it. Then on day 88, I spent all my time gathering wood, and after that, I began to explore new spells from my spellbook, making spells of healing, which would restore health, shielding, which would stop oncoming damage, a spell of smelt, which would smelt any ores I mined, and a glyph of extract, which is exactly like Silk Touch. Starting the last day of my last 10 days, I began to work on the 1 block. After a short while, I was greeted with a chest that contained some obsidian and a flint and steel. This marked the end of the Nether phase and began the final phase, the end. On day 91, I worked my way back into the Nether, and this time with a total of 20 minutes on the timer, which gave me plenty of time to go through and collect all of the blaze rods I may need to enter the end. Despite now having an unlimited source of gold, I still needed the one main resource of Minecraft, diamonds. And in order to get diamonds, I had to go right back into my orchard and continue converting stone into ores. I managed to get a couple of diamonds from the orchard, and I ended up crafting those diamonds into a diamond axe so that I could create the spell Fell. The spell Fell was completely overpowered and destroyed any tree that I clicked. This made anything that I would need, like wood or fuel, so much easier. I spent most of the time on days 93 and 94 just creating more spells and preparing for the dragon fight. There could be any sorts of mods or anything that would make the dragon fight different, so I had to be prepared for anything. Then, on the evening of day 94, I decided to start working on the 1 block again, trying to reach the end portal. While doing so, I had a weird giant froggy spidey thingy spawn, and I also had a slime spawn. The slime was being a little bit annoying, so I had to end its whole career, but the froggy thing was kind of chill, so I let it free, and of course it ended up flying away, so nice. I kept working on the 1 block throughout all of day 95, and I had a weird jellyfish lantern thing also spawn. Then, a while after that, I had a chest spawn with 6 ender portal frames and 6 eyes of ender. I kept mining a little while longer to see if I could get the rest of the portal frames, but it turns out that you have to craft the rest of the frames yourself. The funny thing is, crafting that by yourself would take almost another 100 days. So after that, I decided to devise a plan. I didn't want to just end the video without actually accomplishing something. So I got together my materials and decided to fight the boss, the Wilden Chimera, which is a mini boss from Ars Nouveau that I knew nothing about except for the fact that it was super fast and exploded. So on day 96, I decided to use the platform that I was going to use to gather my items, and instead turned that into a giant boss arena. With the help of the building gadget, this was super easy. On days 97 and 98, I spent most of the time just gathering resources, preparing for the unknown. I crafted myself a new amulet that would help regenerate my mana faster, and I made several different types of spells that would help me in battle. Then finally, I crafted myself the materials I needed to summon the boss, and on day 99, I was ready. Day 99, I used a tablet on an altar, and threw in a Wilden Horn, a Wilden Spike, and a Wilden Wing to summon the Wilden Chimera. The boss was basically a giant werewolf-looking thing, with a couple of different phases. At first, I panicked, but after a while, I used my belt of levitation, and I could easily just fly above it and shoot it down. But as soon as it hits its second phase, it started shooting off spikes, and sending off weird gravity blasts that would throw me right off the edge of the island. Eventually, it threw me off, and I took tons of damage, even breaking one of my totems and then dying. And shortly after, because of its insane speed, it hit me in the back, and I died. I got my stuff back fairly easily, but it continued to kill me a couple of times, and eventually, when I had nothing and it was charging at me, I panicked and jumped off the edge, and the Chimera jumped into the void with me. Thankfully, it was still day 99, and I had just enough time to go recover my items. And with this newfound knowledge of how the boss worked, I created an entirely new part of the arena. You know what they say when you can't kill the boss? Find ways to cheese it. I created a platform in the sky, and also railing to keep the boss safe from the void. I quickly gathered the items I would need to resummon the boss, and begun the final fight with the Wilden Chimera. And just as the sun was beginning to rise, I got the final hits on the Wilden Chimera. I jumped down to go collect my prize, and that marked the end of my 100 days. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, then please consider liking and subscribing. I spent way too much time on this video and on the Bumble Zone, so if you were to like and subscribe, I would appreciate it a ton. Thanks again everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.